everyone. Thank you, Council Member Bill Boyce, for coming and doing this interview for Black History Month. And could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Wally. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank the staff for inviting me. This is Black History Month, but I like to think Black History Month is every month, right? But it's always nice to kind of just focus on it, strictly. This is Black History Month, so this is what we're doing today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in the state of North Carolina in the South. As you can tell, I still have that Southern accent. It will never go away. It's just who I am, and I'm proud of it. But born in North Carolina, a town called Edenton. It's right on the coast. Matter of fact, I could take a rock and throw it into the Atlantic Ocean, right? So, my parents raised me. I had four other siblings. I had a sister and two brothers older than me, and then my baby brother. So I was raised in the South. Went to school back in North Carolina. For the first part, from my kindergarten through sixth grade, I went to all black school, and then into the seventh grade, during the early '70s. That's when they started integrating the school, and I can recall that wasn't a very pleasant thing when they integrated the school, because they didn't really prepare us to what it was going to be like. Friday, we no longer went to black school. We all got moved to the white school. And then and like from one day to the next day, and it wasn't a good thing. Fights breaking out, it was just really terrible. It wasn't a good preparation. And one thing we noticed also, mostly all the black teachers got fired, and except for one, and they had all the white teachers. So I can recall in the seventh grade where we were actually protest,
Mhm.
and where the black parents pulled all the kids out of school. We was allowed to march, to demonstrate, protest. But I recall one thing that my parents, as a seventh grader, and is that you can protest, you can walk, you can march, you can yell. Well, one thing you don't do, you will not destroy anybody's property, and that just sticks in my head today because my dad said, "You destroy my property, you're gonna have to deal with me," and we didn't want that, right? So we was out of school maybe about 2 weeks, and they finally kind of got it together, and some of the black teachers finally came over, and it got better, but there's still a lot of tension going on. And then I went on and went through high school, and then throughout the high school, the summer I had the opportunity to work for my uncle. My uncle, he raised watermelon, right?
Mm.
And we used to start from sun up to sundown, pull watermelons back in the south, and I can recall I got paid $25 a day, and I was rich, right? So, but we pulled a lot of watermelon, right? So, but we started at 6 in the morning, and by the time you pull them all out of the field, then you had to go load the truck up, right? So you finish around 6, and then starting around 6 o'clock at night, you got to load the big tractors and trailers up, which lasts forever. Get home around 10 o'clock, and then you start all over again. Once I got out of high school, I watched my parents struggle to put my older sister and brother through college, and I just didn't want to put that burden on them. So I talked to my dad, and my dad said, my dad was in the military, and he said, "Hey, you thought about going in the military?" And I did some research, and so I decided I was going to go in the military. So I graduated from high school like in June 2nd or 3rd, and by 20 days later, I was in the military. And going into the military, I wanted to be unique, because I was some of a jock growing up, played football and basketball, and I was a track star in high school. So I asked, "What's the toughest thing you have?" They said, "You could be an airborne ranger paratroop." I said, "Okay, that's me, right?" And they said, "Where you want to be stationed at?" I say, "I want to be stationed in Washington, going to the East Coast, Washington, D.C., yeah." So I went to my basic training and went to my AIT training, and I went through the infantry school. And then they line you all up and say, "Private Boyce, Seattle, Washington." I say, "No, no, no, Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C., right?"
Yeah.
And but the Ranger Battalion just happened to be on Fort Lewis, right? So I had no idea. And my mom looked at the map, and here in North Carolina, and way over here, she was all crying, historical, So, but that's what brought me into the state of Washington. So, I spent 4 years as an Airborne Ranger paratrooper stationed on Fort Lewis, now called McCoy Lewis Joint Base now, right? So I did that, and after I got out, I just fell in love with this place here. Right, I'm an outdoor person, and North Carolina, I thought we had mountain, but once I came out here, we got hills in North Carolina. We got mountains out here, right? So I stayed out here and met my wife. We got married, started working for the Boeing company, um, have kids.
Years living camp.
Thank you, Wally. As I was getting into it, so after my wife, we got married. You know, at first I lived in Seattle. She lived in Federal Way. Then we moved to my place in Seattle. We want to have kids, right?
Mhm.
And another thing that was important to us, I grew up in the church. She grew up in the church, so we also want to make sure that we want to bring our kids up in the church. So before we got married, we kind of talked through those things. I grew up as a strong Southern Baptist, right? You know, where they get up and shout and and feel the Holy Spirit, right? And my wife grew up as a Catholic, right? So I went to a couple of Catholic service, and she went to a couple of Southern Baptists down Mount Zion, and so we had to try to compromise, where we're going to go. So we decided to be Lutheran, right? So I probably tilt a little bit more, but hey, it's
Yeah.
all good, right? So and then we started having kids. And at the time when the kids about ready to start school, we kind of did some research. And at that time, if you look back at the data, in the mid '80s and so on, Kent was the number one, the top school in the state, right? And we wanted education always been important to us. So we decided to move to Kent, and we moved up on the east hill of Kent, still the same house today. And it was kind of weird because I live, off right by the country club off 256 and 144, and that was just be like the country. I mean, you were way out there. You never see any cars, and you never seen the black people out there as well too. I mean, so it was like 1984, 85, 86, and I felt like I was the only black person who lived out there, right? So you can tell over the years that have changed significantly, but it was the school that really brought us to Kent. All my five kids, we are very blessed in so many ways. They all went through Meridian Elementary, Matson Junior High. They graduated from the Kentwood High School. All five have gone on to college and got their college degree. Three out of five have a master's degree, and they all productive members of society, having a good job, and they're really doing extremely well. So yes, I think so. That's what really kind of got us going and brought us to Kent.
Nice, nice. And it's a as a parent, there's nothing more satisfying seeing your kids,
Yes.
graduate from college and become productive. And that is what we all strive for. Thank you very much for sharing with
And
us.
just to add a little more to that, while growing up, my parents, they taught us, as being African American, they say, one thing that people can never take away from you is your education, right? And they instilled in us education was important. And when my kid was growing up, we never talked about if you're going to go to college. We always talk about what college you're going to go to, right? And I think that was instilled in them right away, and they all finished. I'll tell you a quick story here. My youngest son, he might not like this here, but it took him a little while to get through school, right? And matter of fact, it took him 6 years to finish, right? And but every year he'd come over summer, and that fourth year he was like maybe 20 credits short. I said, "You heading back out of here?" And then the fifth year he was probably like 10 credits short. I said, "You're heading back out of here." So, but he eventually got it, right? And he's so proud to get it. So, but at the end of the time, you got to stay with them. You got to be true to yourself. And the job he had today, he is doing extremely well, and a lot had to do with education. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
I felt very welcome here.
Mhm.
I mean, growing up, my wife is Caucasian. We didn't have that problem. People treated us well. I'm not saying there was no problem out there. Don't, I'm just saying us, we didn't have any real issues. We kind of fell in love with the community. We have built a good network of friends that our kids have been able to hang out to. And then once you're here, then they start getting into all types of sports. They play sports, baseball, basketball, volleyball. So once you start doing that, it really feel like home, right? And then you have all your friends around you. So we just, I think a lot to do with the friendship, the kids and their friends and the family that we met. It was pretty easy to stay here once you got here. And I'm kind of old school in a lot of ways. Once I'm settled, right? So, we've been in the same house since 1986. Of course, we
Yeah,
built it out, remodel it, but there's that same house where the kids grow up, and the same house where the grandkids get to come to today. So yeah, it's and I'll probably be there until I die, right? So yeah, so it's just the family and the friends and
mhm,
the kids really just kind of kept us in Kent.
absolutely. So you kind of, felt that you had a network that you built among, the community and that you felt welcome. So that's what said, made you say, you know what, we're going to stay here for longevity.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Thank
And then
you.
once I got involved, your next question, I think around the school board, right? So as my
Right.
kid was in school, I mean, I think education, as I said earlier, was always important to me. And I think being an African American, I want them, it was even more so. And there's always something that trigger you to run for an office or get involved, right? I can recall my dad, was saying that, you can't complain unless you part of the solution, right? And I heard this old saying today, and my dad didn't say the word, but that's what he was saying. He said, "You got to be at the table."
Right.
If you're not at the table, bring a table, right? So you could be there, right? I said,
Yeah.
okay, I like that, right? So, but my kids, for me to get into school, at the time there was thinking about bringing sex education into the school, right? And I felt as a parent
Mhm.
that was my wife's responsibility and my responsibility to teach kids about sex education, right? So that what got me going. I had a very narrow focus, right? And that was pushing me out there. Of course, once you get out there, you get more broad. But once I got on the school board, it was a it was a very exciting opportunity for me because I got to meet lots of people, my kids who have their friends, type of issue. You get to hear what's going on, and you can either take it back to the
That-
teacher, or you can take it back to the superintendent. So I think what made me a good board member, and I spent 16 years on the Kent School Board, 4 times as school board president, really because I had 5 kids and it was kind of right after one another, right? And then as long as I had kids in the school, I knew I could be a good school board member. And that's why I decided to stay there. Once my youngest son graduated in 2011, I decided, it's time to pass the baton to someone else. I strongly believe, and this is just me, in order to be a good school board member, you need to have kids in the school because you get to hear more, see more, and I think that was part of my success of being, like I like to say, a pretty good school board member.
and
Well, as I said earlier, as a school board, I think one thing I was the first African American ever served on the school board, right? And I think to me, I want to be a positive role model to everybody, especially our minority kids, right? We as minority is just the way it is, right? When we see somebody in a position, we can easily relate to it, right? So, I want people to be able to relate to me. I still see kids in their 30s and mid 30s who still recognize me as a school board member. Probably about a year ago, I had this one kid that I was coming out of QSC,
Mhm.
and he'd say, "Mr. Boyce," and I said, and I kind of remember him, but not tight. He said, "I want to thank you. I remember one time I was smoking a cigarette, and you came up to me and you told me to put that cigarette out." And he said, "For something about that, he said, I never smoked again since that day there, right?" So I just, you just never know the little thing that you can do to impact people's lives and so on. And so, being a role model, being the first African American, and the people could see, I want people to be able to say, "Hey, you could do that too," right? So after my son graduated, I still want to be involved. I still want to be a role model. I called Kent my home.
Mhm.
So at that time, I thought, my next step would be on the Kent City Council, a little more broader type, the whole city and so on. So I ran against a very successful incumbent, and she was doing a good job. But it's just all about campaigning, right? So I ran, and and a lot of people didn't think I had a shot to win, but I recall I had like 65% of the vote, and and it was and the mayor Raff and I ran at the same time. We both came on the council at the same time as well too, right? So, but it was I think people recognize me for the year that I served on the school board, the type of work I have done on the school board, and got to know me as an individual, as in, I kind of do what I say and say what I do. You're gonna get an honest answer from me, and I kind of walk the talk. So I think I built that reputation up. So so for the citywide, that was the next logical step for me, to be on the council, to be able to have an impact to the whole city as well, like I did with the school board, and that's what I chose to run. I still want to be involved. I still want to have to say so what this city looked like, and have an impact on that, and and I also become the first African American also to be on the Kent City Council. And the same thing about being a role model, a positive role model. I mean, you want people to be able to uh, see themselves within you, right? And I hope that I have been a inspiration and impact to the young generation to come. And you look at our council today, in my opinion, it's probably one of the most diverse council probably in the state. You have Councilmember Core, Councilmember Fincher, and it really a reflection of the city. And I think that is important because we are a majority minority city, right? And I think it's only fair that you have that representation so people can see, hey, and it's the people who choose you too, right? So it's been a pleasure. I am enjoying myself on the council. I'm going to my third term, and it's really been a blessing in many, many ways. Mhm.
Thank
That's a good question. I think when I tell you my wife and I first moved, we were 85, 86. Uh, we was a majority white in the
you.
city, right? And I think now we are a minority majority. So there's been lots of change
Mhm.
since 1986. I think people like moving on and can't afford the South End, right? Seattle, right? They kind of flush you out, and people decide to move to Kent. Kent is very big, very spread out,
Right.
where people can come and find a place to live, and find things to do for them. I think at the time, and even now, the school, pretty decent school we have at the Kent School District and so on. And I think it's easy for people to settle in this city here, right? But it's very diverse, right? It have changed a lot, and I think that's for the good, right? And I think it's going to continue to change for diversity. And I think we need to realize that there's a lot of strength in diversity, a lot of strength in diversity, and we need to realize that. And I think what people need to do that they don't always do is really just kind of take a step back and just listen to the person. I love learning about people's journey to America, their journey to the United States, and learn from them because they have a story to tell. And you listen to that story, it's kind of hard to not want to be a positive force with them to help them achieve their goal and really form some type of relationship and a partnership so we all could be successful. I strongly believe in the tide rolls up, right? So if we can continue to do that, to focus on that, we will be a great place, not only as a city, but as a nation. But as you know, there's a lot of things going on today in the world today that really, I don't think that's the majority of the world, but we still have the people that are always going to be popping up. And we as a whole need to crush that and shut it down, right? And I think a lot of things with the Black Lives Matter, right? When I was marching, in the '70s, it was all black, right? And we was fighting for the black cause, right? Now today, you sometimes some places you got more white marching
Yeah.
for some of the black causes, So let's just show you how much things have changed, and it's a good thing. I mean, all people really want is equality, give them the benefit of the doubt, where it's from economic perspective, housing perspective, jobs. I mean, that's all people want, just a fair shot. And I think if we could do that, we're gonna be a lot better place as a country. Yeah, I think for me within the community, I want to. I'm ingrained in this community. I want to continue to be ingrained in this community. I want us to be able to talk about issues that we face in this community. I mean, we're not a perfect community, right? So And that's a good thing about it, being able to have that conversation and that dialogue where people can sit down and have honest conversation about what's going on in the community, right? There's places you think about the police brutality and those type things, George Floyd, and those things are real,
Right.
and we have not had anything like that, knock on wood, in Kent.
Right.
But that don't mean we shouldn't start talking about those things. I think if you notice with the council today, we got a great police chief. They're doing a great job. Is We begin to talk about some of the things because you want to make sure you talk about them before they happen because it's possible they could happen. So for me in the community, what it holds is being able to have that dialogue, having that open, candid conversation about what's going on in society, what's going on in Kent. How can we make Kent a better place, right? And I think that's what I see. It's just us being able to have respect for one another, being able to just talk about anything from A to Z. And there's really sometimes we agree to agree. We also we can agree to disagree. And
Yeah.
when you disagree, I mean, it's okay, right? I love to get my way every time, right? But I'm not gonna do that, right? And I need to be able to respect, Bill, I'm not always right, and so therefore you got to be able to swallow that pride and make sure that hey, I can live this year. So
Absolutely.
that's what I see. Just the constant dialogue, the constant conversation, and talking about issues, and being open and candid. They're different, two different entities, right? When you talk about the school board and the city, for me, school board at the time, really, I am all about kids, right? And by being on the school board, my focus is strictly based on the kids. How can we set our kids up to get a great education? Make sure we have program and places for all types of kids. Kids learn in so many different ways, right? So we got to make sure that we have programming places so kids can learn. So for me, being on the school board, all I care about was the kids, and that was my focus. Now, this may not be the right thing, but for city council, it's more about the adults, right? Because really you are having more type of conversation with adults and across the city, and you definitely represent the kids as well too. But it's really about policies and procedure of what's best for the whole entire city. So you're looking at it from a bigger lens, if I guess maybe the right word to say. And that's a great question, right? And I'm probably guilty of this here as well, too, right? I mean, you talk about the Kent Historical Society. There's a lot of history in
Yes.
this city, and I mean a lot of history. And and I recall some of the history, like during the Pearl Harbor, what happened, to certain people, how they got treated. I mean, I didn't know that for probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, right? Just to learn about some of that history, right? So I think we as a society, I think we as a council, I think we as a council have tried to provide finance to the historical societies to try to make sure they continue to be successful. But I think, really, we also need to learn about the history of the city of Kent. And I think the Kent Historical Society, small but very effective, do a good job of really having an infrastructure in place where people can go and learn. But I think we as a city, we need to kind of find a way to get people there to learn a lot more about what this city used to be and some of the things that minorities went through, during the Pearl Harbor days and so on. We just need to do a better job of trying to continue to advertise and promote the Kent Historical Society so people can learn a lot about the cultural, the thing that happened in this city back then and compared to where we at. So lots of opportunity, but after this COVID stuff go away, I will go on a record and say, hey, I'll do a better job as an individual and also do a better job um, as a city council to see what can we do to continue to promote the historical society, get people to go and visit and learn a little more about this city. A couple of people pops in my head right now. A little more, I'm probably a little prejudiced in a good way, but my friend, Council Member Fincher, we have had some conversation, the two of us, and I think we relate to each other real well. I think she was spent some time in the South as well too.
Mhm.
I think she will bring a different perspective that you can talk to. I think about I can't think of Randall last name, but I had to get his last name. But he got a business in Kent, and then also Tom Miner. I mean, he's a great guy,
Randall Smith.
and even you yourself, Awali.
Oh,
I think you will be a good candidate as well too. So there's a lot of people out here doing a lot of good things that you really can sit down and be part of this year Black History Month.
we appreciate you again. I will try. You mean Randall Smith? He has a business.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. That's something. Yes, yeah.
absolutely. I will.
You have a great story as well too. But I want to take the time and say thank you very much. You guys doing a wonderful job. Wally, you a great leader in this community as well too. Thank you for your time. And Eileen, I remember you way back in the school. So I mean, a lot of familiar faces and so on. So keep working hard, and keep using us as a city council really to try to help promote and get the word out by the Kent Historic Society. So I'm gonna be glad when this COVID stuff over, we can start seeing face to face, start coming to council meeting, and I'm sure you have this council backing you 100%.
We appreciate that, and it's good to hear that. And we want to make sure that we continue to highlight our community as the history keepers. It is very important, as they say, if you know where you came from, you know where you're going. So, yeah, thank
And the
you.
last thing to remember, right? Have a seat at the table.
Absolutely.
And if there's no room, bring your own table, okay?
Exactly. So we'll put that in writing and put that out there and make sure people follow. And we appreciate you again for coming in.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.